Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Hundo and I are on the road, as you can see, and he still doesn't love the car, so forgive him if he's looking like he's slightly terrified. He is. I don't know how to fix that for him. However, I'm not here for that. The reason I'm here is because it's currently Mercury retrograde. However, if this applies, when other stuff that comes flying by, it's the same technique that I use. When I'm given something to review, or I remember something, or I look back fondly, or I look back not so fondly, I can go a couple of different ways with it. Well, this morning I was reminded and given a beautiful opportunity to be very grateful for someone who was presented to me as quite hateful and awful and just a terrible person. I had not met this person. I just got the precursor of this person's awful and he's your partner. Welcome to the new job. I had gotten a job as a paramedic, and I was super excited about it. I was employed full-time, and I was super excited about that because they were highly coveted positions. But I got my job, and I was just all about it. Well, unfortunately, when you're low man on the totem pole, you get the worst possible shift with the worst possible person. Is kind of how that went. That's how it was told to me. That's how I perceived it, because the person that I was partnered with was supposedly one of the worst. He was the one that asked for new partners routinely. He was grumbly. He was old, and he was old by comparison, older than me. He was probably at least 20 years older than me, and I was about 25 at the time. So, but I just kept hearing these stories about him, and I thought, okay, but I'm super excited about my job, and I don't want to make any predispositions about anybody in my mind. So I thought, well, if he's a monster and he asks to get rid of me, or I ask to get rid of him, apparently 202, they accommodate that stuff. So we'll see what we can do with this. But don't jump into it assuming the worst just because everybody else thinks the worst of him. But I did understandably have, trepidation a bit about your reputation precedes you, dude. Please don't eat me alive, because I'm brand new at this, I'm a new medic, and I'm new to this job, and wow, it's a big city, a big system, bigger than the one that I've worked in before, and this is full time, so I'm not doing that, part-time, just kind of medical transfers, and, I was doing lightweight stuff primarily, so please be easy on me, please. And yet he wasn't, but he wasn't a complete jerk about it. Now, the reason that his reputation preceded him is that he looked very mean and he looked very gruff. He was a very obese man, probably weighed, I would say, easily 450, and actually how he managed to work himself in and out of the rig, I have no idea. I was just straight up impressed right off the top with that alone, that he didn't let the fact that he was heavy and obese get in his way, and it didn't. There were a lot of standards required of us as far as lifting and carrying and things of that nature, and he could do all that, so they could not say anything. As long as he was performing, then he was performing, and I was obese at the time, so we took a lot of heat for being, obese, and we took a lot of heat for that. I heard a lot of sideline, crappy comments and stuff that, whatever, it's fine. But the best part was that he looked very mean, right? And he really wasn't. He had a high expectation for his partners. He had a high expectation and a standard for what he expected the people around him to be doing, and he didn't put up with any bullshit from anybody about it, and he didn't apologize for how he felt. He'd been in EMS forever, and at 45, if you're in EMS at 45 and you've been in it a minute, you've been in it probably 20 years at least. And so he'd seen a lot of medicine come and go that was a lot rougher, grislier, and awful, as we were progressing through finding nicer ways to handle emergencies and deal with, life changing and life or death situations. In cars, the way that safety works is much better. And so he had seen a lot of extremely grisly scenes in his life, that were easing up and getting better. However, horrible, still horrible. And he was a veteran of some kind. I don't remember the branch, but he spent some time in the military as well. So he understood discipline, and he understood his job, and he also understood, yeah, you'll get eaten alive if you're going to stand like a slob. You're going to get eaten alive if you don't park yourself somewhere and stand your position, hold firm, stand fast, and don't act like an ass. That was pretty much what his standard was. And so before I even started with him, I had to go through with a preceptor to check off, on skills and things. And I was with a field training officer who I like very much. He was very good to me, and he taught me a whole lot. So he was telling me, I said, what's the deal with this dude? Why are people telling me that I should be terrified of him? What's the real deal with him? And what do I need to know? How can I go in and be better prepared? Do I need, a chair and a whip, a dart gun with some sedative in it? What do I bring to this to make this better? And he said, well, because I think that he's just kind of largely misunderstood. He's an excellent medic. But he does snore, like when you're parked, on the side there waiting for a call that's an hour in between, perhaps, when it's real super slow, and you're posting in, third tier or fourth tier, you might be a minute, and he's going to snore, and so that annoys people. And I thought, okay, well, he can't help it if he snores, get some earplugs or something. I mean, okay, that's navigable. I can do this. And I said, what else about his personality that don't people like? And he said, well, he expects his partner to know what they're doing. And I was automatically clenching up my colon, went, no, what do you mean? Because I'm new. I've only been on the scene here a year, or so, and I haven't done street medicine like this. This is a huge system here, and I was just panicking. And he said, he's pretty grouchy and he's pretty grumbly. If you're tough enough to hang with the fact that he might cuss you out when you get done with the call, you'll learn a lot from him. And I thought, that seems like combat learning, and wow, that's a straight up learning curve that really hurts, really hurts my feelings. What are you talking about? And so anyway, I got started with this guy, and he ended up being the best partner I had, one of two of the best partners that I had. The other one was not very well liked either, for different reasons, but that's a different story. He ended up being the best partner because he did teach me a lot, and he had a high standard. However, he said right from the beginning, I expect you to know what you're doing. He said, if you don't know what you're doing, you better declare that early, and I'll kick your ass after the call, when at a more professional time. Now, the funny thing is that he was soupsy-doopsy professional, very ethical, and very impeccable in what he did. However, you wouldn't know that by looking at him. He used to be a long-distance truck driver, and was not very educated outside of EMS, a technical school where dumb people go when they can't get a real degree. You know those, right? Yeah, life or death, baby. And he exhibited the ability to handle that kind of stress, that kind of bullshit assumptions about him, and he went in and bossed the mess out of stuff routinely. And I was very immediately brought into that because we had a patient early on that needed to be intubated, and it's your turn, Kate, you're up. And I froze, and I heard about it later. Yes, I did. I froze, and there were some mitigating factors for, a brand new person trying to drop a tube in somebody for the first time in the field. Even though I'd done it in the hospital and in surgical procedure and stuff, that's really neat, and it's cool. However, when somebody's on the ground and it's an emergency, that's a completely different ball game. But I said, I can't visualize the cords. I can't do this. And he goes, move out of the way, because we have somebody that needs a tube. They need it now, not when you're done, But, thanks for letting me know early that he had a couple of things to say about that yes, I understand there's mitigating factors, but did you see me plop my ass right on the ground? This 450-pound man plopped it right down and plopped it right in. I mean, dropped that tube in a matter of seconds and said, get busy with what you got to do. And that was so comforting in a way, even though back in my mind I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to hear about this later. And I did. But he said, did you see? You don't have time to do anything to doubt yourself and whatever. He said, so I appreciate that you got in there and did it when I asked you to. He said, I'm clear on what your history is, that you don't have that experience, but how the hell do you think you're going to get it? He said, however, you called it early. He said, I personally would have, attempted one more time, because I was watching you. And I thought, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad, because even though I was kind of I don't know, I was embarrassed and felt bad that I couldn't get the tube in adequate time. He did say, next time, attempt it one more time, because it may be that what you're thinking, you're visualizing, it might pull into if you tried something else. And he gave me a few little techniques. He said that would have taken you about 3 seconds more, and that would not be a critical juncture, because I was already getting ready to drop my ass to the floor and save you, and the patient. So he was very clear about, yeah, your technique is a newbie. It's a brand new newbie person, that though you're a paramedic, if you've never done that in the field and you've never had somebody in cardiac arrest that needs that tube now, it can get a little froggy, and it can get real, frosty with, what I need to do. And he said, however, the good thing is, and then he went through those things, that this is what you did right, and this is where you need to, get that skill up tight. And they were all reasonable things. The fact that he was giving me the criticism up front really didn't allow me to park for any amount of time about, that, hey, it was really great that you did this, that, or the other. The bottom line is that you're a paramedic on the streets here, and you're expected to be at a certain standard. You didn't meet that standard. So let's figure out how and why, that happened, and how we can fix it for the future, because I expect my partner to be able to do that stuff. That's just the way this rolls. As we trade calls, you're going to be lead on the next call, and I'm going to be lead on the next call, unless there's something so terrible that, I need to take lead. You'll be the basic, you'll be my my assistant handing stuff to me. However, it's basically a 50% relationship that we share the responsibility. So the best part of it was, though, that in the off time, after that fairly early on experience where, okay, we got out of the gate, Secretariat made it out of the gate finally, and there it is, that you get kind of slapped to the ground there, Kate, that because he didn't shame me, he didn't, put a lot of weird stuff on me and act like I was just an idiot, it's because you're a woman. I heard a lot of stuff, I really did. 25 years ago, it was a very different ballgame than it is now. And so I heard a lot of things about, my performance as I was going through the training period, the probie period before I was released to the streets and stuff. And I heard a lot of chatter, and, people, they gossip. Some people do in every, vocation. It doesn't matter what you do. There are people who just talk shit because they don't have anything better to do, I guess. But anyway, I heard it. I got it. I was clear on what people thought of me and my ability, and the fact that I might have had a small, chip on my shoulder about being a woman in a male-dominated field, and proving myself. Yeah, he told me to sit right down with that mess, because this isn't about you being a woman. This is about you not being skilled up enough on that call. Get it better, get it right, and let me help you. But beyond that, when we were sitting in the rig, for days after that, because it was 12 hours at a time, man, 3 or 4 days in a row, depending on what week it was, that we did 4 on and 3 off, and then 3 on and 4 off, So, I mean, we were rotating a lot together, and overnight, or no, early mornings. Early, like butt crack, 4 o'clock in the morning, early, when we have a lot of time to be sitting around listening to each other snore, or grab coffee and get to know one another, whatever it was. And I did get to know him, and I was just fascinated with the fact that here's this man that people have so many assumptions about him, and they're very unkind about him, and he's actually probably, aside from the other dude that I had as a partner that nobody else wanted, who had a very similar idea about him, he just presented way differently. He was probably the best of all the other people that I worked with when I worked part-time and rotated with a bunch of different people. He was one of the best for being the kindest, the most respectful, the most knowledgeable, and the quickest to get a job done, that didn't labor and whine about, well, I was going to take the stair chair, and none of that. Even though he was physically very encumbered by his weight, he didn't let that get in his way. Miraculously, I don't know how he did it, because I was struggling hard and fell down a couple of times. Which he took the opportunity to say, yeah, that was super graceful there, I saw that. Yeah, okay. So, but he was okay about it. It was funny. But anyway, what I found out about him is that he had children, that he'd had a very contentious relationship when he got divorced, that his wife had successfully talked his children out of speaking to him, and I don't remember all the details, and he could have been lying to me. However, he wasn't lying anywhere else in EMS that I saw him, and so I figured, we're talking privately, why would he lie to me? He's impeccable in everything else that he's doing. Why would he lie to me? And it seems like somebody who comes across with a pretty high standard of what they expect is probably going to piss off somebody that really doesn't keep that standard. And I don't know in his personal life if that was unreasonable. I could just see the setup for why somebody would not really want to believe that during a divorce that he initiated and said, I gotta go, you're slow, basically, that why that would tip off some feelings. Unfortunately, though, it marched him into, he was separated from and estranged from his children because of successful brainwashing, and he was very grieved by that he was very, very bothered, and it hurt him a great deal, and it had been years since he had spoken to either one of his children, and that just really disturbed him. And I said, well, what do you do now, as far as romance and all that? Do you ever go out and do anything? And he was actually, he worked a lot. He worked a whole lot, and he said, I do some things. He played like darts or something, or he did something, slightly low-key, maybe played cards or something, dominoes, I don't really know. He did something kind of low-key, that he had like a gentleman's club that he belonged to when he wasn't working, but that was maybe one night a week or something. Otherwise, he spent a lot of time working, and I began to understand why it was that he came across so mean, is that he was kind of lonely. However, despite the fact that he'd been, screwed sideways by his ex-wife and his children, that he still didn't take that anger, the fact that he was lonely. Sorry, I'm going through some busy ground here. Even though he was lonely sometimes, and he didn't really say that word, he didn't present it that way, but he did say that, I work a whole lot, and I just cope with it. That's what I do. But despite all of those factors, he still was not cruel to people, even in calls where, patients can get really nasty. They can get quite personal and say all kinds of things, especially about something so obvious as someone's weight. We got smacked a few times with junk like that. However, he never took it personal, and he never declined or withheld appropriate care to people based on their behavior, and he never treated me badly. And whenever people would say, so how's it going with him, the monster, I'd say, you really don't have a very good idea of who that person is. You're making assumptions about him, because maybe he jumped you on a call that you just blew up or something, and he didn't like it. However, nothing that this man has said to me has been cruel or out of line, or wasn't something that I had coming to me. If you can't do the job, then you can't do the job. And if you can't handle the fact that somebody's telling you that with respect, he had a foul mouth, and that didn't bother me either, because he wasn't directing it at me, and he wasn't using nasty derogatory language towards me, which was a real problem with other people. Unfortunately, they had a mouth that was directing it towards me or about me, or talking about patients after they left our care, and that stuff it really bothered me, and I didn't see any of that. And so when people would tell me, I can't believe you're able to work with him, I'm like, I guess I must be a monster whisperer or something, or hey, I get to know people and don't make assumptions about the surface behavior unless they're directing some very nasty stuff to me, or I see it happening to somebody else. However, if you can stand in the face of a patient who's critically ill, who is so angry and upset, or is just tanking and not really going along with the program, if we need this to move along before you crash, we'd like this to be less emergent, and still hold that sense of civility and propriety and impeccability. I had a lot of respect for that, because I had other people that I worked with that got nasty with patients, and here's the truth about it, is that when it's just you, me, and them, the patient or whatever, it's just us in the room, or there's very little, everybody in the environment is in pre-hospital, who's going to be talking about that when we're all just kind of jumping on the bandwagon and going, come on, the environment's changed dramatically, I am sure. We have a different culture going now, I'm told, and I do believe that, because it was nasty. It could be very nasty. Most of it was very professional. However, when it wasn't, it was a very ugly little crew that got all up in it personal with people, whether they were saying it directly to them or not. I never saw straight up abuse of people. However, stuff that was just like, they're in their worst day of their life, or at least one of them, and the last thing they need you to do is hop on top of that mess and get busy with them, because you're very much in your ego about it, things like that. So anyway, one of the gruffest people that I was warned about, take your taser with you there, Kate, in order to survive your first shift, that you won't make it. That months later, when people were going, I can't believe you're still with him, I'm like, yeah, I love him, I don't want to ever lose this connection here, please don't ever put me in with anybody else. And unfortunately, had to. He either changed shift, or I went part-time again or something. I don't remember what happened, but it was an administrative thing that wasn't wasn't initiated by either one of us because we didn't like each other. As a matter of fact, I was very, very glad to know that whenever we had our last shift together, he said, it's really been a pleasure to get to know you, and thank you so much, because, you know, it's been nice to talk to you. It's hell and grueling and boring AF when you sit 12 hours, you know, with someone that you're just grinding in your mind about, ugh, I can't stand this person. He said, so thank you that, you know, even though we didn't, sorry about that, even though we didn't always agree on things, and, you know, you got your feelings hurt a couple of times and stuff, the fact that, you know, you were willing to talk to me about it and willing to learn from where your mistakes are. That's why I'm here as the lead medic, is to be the one that knows more. And because you didn't, and you weren't a jackass about it, thank you, because it made my job so much easier. And I'm looking to, you know, not do this job forever. I'd really rather that none of my, you know, remaining days be with somebody who's just contrary and a butthole and is going to get stuck on stupid things about how much I weigh, how much I eat, and how much I snore. So, you know, thanks, you know. And believe me, I equally exchange the favor. Well, thank you, because I've been in the training environment for a minute with a bunch of different partners, and you know, people are not kind very much, you know, when they don't want to be and they think they have the upper hand, or they do have the upper hand. Woo boo, it gets intense. So anyway, thank you very much. While you're going through Mercury retrograde or any other day of your life, if stuff is coming back to you, to say thank you for that remembrance. You know, it's always a good thing to say in my mind, whenever that comes up, how may I say thank you for being so kind? And I just sent him some, you know, real thank yous, genuine, you know, heart pump of thank you. I really appreciate that, because I learned more about being a decent human being than I ever did about the EMS thing. I did learn that there too. However, I learned even more about how to connect with people and how not to assume that they're awful just because somebody else told me they were. So anyway, take care of yourselves and enjoy your day. We're going to go eclipse and go walk around for a little bit and figure out what's up in a new place, in the same place we've been quite a few times, but there's a new trail that I was guided to go on today, so I'm looking forward to it. See what we can melt away. So take care of yourselves, as I said, and enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember, get within your skin, because you're divine. It is so fine. And please do not let anyone define what your divine is, because you're more than what anybody's story would tell you about you, especially if it's riveted on the worst parts of, you know, of you, or the worst parts that have ever existed in you. Please don't let anybody define you by that, and don't let yourself define you by that either, because that's just letting those people create your story for you. So today's a new day. Go be brilliant in a brand new way. So thank you again, and I'll talk to you again, my friends. Take care. Mwah. Goodbye.